restore all the tales they weave, comfort, illusion.
All right, everyone.
Glow makes me believe.
Let's go ahead with the next session.
Life's confusion.
So we're going to be, just a refresher for those people who haven't come across this, I've been chatting with ChatGPT, and what I've been doing is giving the app 50 topics and 50 or so ways to discuss that. So it makes it more interesting. Variety of topics, variety of ways to discuss it as well, from sort of guiding questions to think about, little guided meditations, you name it. So there's, like I said, there's 50 of them, 50 different strategies to present those reflective questions, and then also like what if scenarios, and a whole load of more. I'm not going to list them all right here. I may put many of them in the chat box as well. Hi there. I'm going to call you Ralph, ChatGPT. Is that okay? Just to make the conversation flow a little bit. And we're going to go ahead with some of the questions and also topics and tactics. Sorry. There you go.
Sure, you can call me Ralph if that helps the conversation flow.
You can call me Ralph.
Let's dive into the questions or topics you have in mind. What would you like to explore next?
How about you pick them out at random for me, so that helps me think on my feet, quite literally. Stand up and walk around a bit.
Yes, I can definitely pick them out randomly to help you think on your feet, Ralph style. Let's go with a quick shuffle and try this one. Tactic 50, Oral Story Evolution. Topic, Compassion Story. Starter, a traveler is passing through a village and sees a stranger sitting by the road. The stranger is clearly in need, but the traveler is unsure whether to stop and help. As they continue on their journey, they begin to reflect on the nature of compassion. What happens next? Feel free to expand the story as you like or add your own twist.
To evolve a story, orally just means spoken. So there are two people, they're walking along that road, and they walk and they walk, and as they walk, they're discussing, is compassion like this or is compassion like that? So, and, oops, Daisy. Thanks, Ralph. It's going to be interrupted.
That's a wonderful start. Let's evolve the story.
Yeah, right.
As the two travelers walk along, one asks, is compassion about always stopping to help, or is it about knowing when to step back? The other traveler replies, perhaps it's both. Compassion may not always look the same. It depends on the moment and the needs of others. As they pass more people, they discuss how compassion isn't just an action, but also a mindset, one that listens to both the heart and the situation at hand. How would you like to take the story further?
It occurs to me that the two people walking along the track could actually be the original Bodhisattva Buddha, the prince, and Chanda, his charioteer. Because what did they see? When they explored out and out and out, they actually sort of, their father had sort of erased all kinds of things from the city that looked like they may provoke a compassionate response. He had moved all the sick people, he had moved all the elderly people, the vulnerable people, and poor people to another location. This was dramatized in the 54 episodes, the one that was sent on Netflix. It's not a Netflix production, but it's, so this could be our journey, that the first person that he comes across is a poor person who doesn't have anything, and the prince is supposed to have only known comfort. So this is quite a shock to the system to see someone who doesn't have any food. They just don't have any food, and the prince hasn't known this. He just snaps his fingers or requests from one of the servants, and food always shows up. And he's always been sort of plump and well-fed and golden-skinned and comfortable. So this is a wake-up call of one kind of compassion for poor people.
That's a fascinating evolution of the story. By incorporating Prince Siddhartha and Chandaka into the narrative, you're adding layers of depth and historical significance. The contrast between the prince's sheltered life and the reality he encounters with Chanda introduces a powerful moment of realization about the suffering in the world and the nature of compassion. In this journey, the first encounter with someone lacking food becomes a profound turning point for Siddhartha, who has always lived in abundance. It's not just about physical hunger, but the prince seeing suffering in all its forms for the first time. Would you like to develop this further and explore how this encounter shapes their conversation about compassion?
So as the two of them go along the path, they then see someone who is sick. They are in great, great pain. And they both discuss about this. What
As
do
the
we
two
do?
continue walking, they encounter someone who is visibly sick, frail, and struggling. The prince is again shocked, as illness has been hidden from him his entire life. He turns to Chanda and asks, "Why do people suffer like this?" Chanda explains that sickness is a part of life, something that cannot be escaped. This encounter deepens the prince's growing awareness of the world's suffering and the fleeting nature of health and comfort, further igniting his curiosity and compassion. Would you like to continue exploring this journey of discovery?
A third person they might come across is a dying person, or even a dead person. This would be a discussion point for them.
As the two continue their journey, they come across a third person, someone on the brink of death, or perhaps already passed away. The prince, still grappling with the new realities of sickness and poverty, is deeply shaken by the sight of death. He turns to Chanda once again, and Chanda explains, "This too is part of life, my prince. Death comes for all, regardless of status or wealth." This encounter becomes the final piece in the prince's awakening, helping him to realize the impermanence of life and the profound need for compassion. Would you like to add to this reflection on mortality and its impact on the journey?
So it's clear that when you see these things and you realize that there is just this very brief life and that there are many things that can happen along it. A person can spend their entire life in poverty, only struggling to get through the day from dawn until sundown. And then there is the case of, the brevity of life is one. And then there's this quest for meaning, whereby people who have become comfortable, which is often the only effort that people are trying to work towards, do not really share their wealth round and therefore make some kind of meaningfulness by only focusing on self-centered aims, self-satisfaction. And they don't gain this sort of broader scope for all life, all living beings, whereby they themselves as an individual entity are able to enter into a bigger scope of social responsibility and their place within the whole. They still remain either within a tight-knit club or an exclusive elite or so on. So this is also what the Buddha saw, that the religious groups of his time, but applies for all these oligarchies that we see, these aristocrats, these exclusive religions that shun everyone outside and call them sort of degrading names, or attack and bomb and try to annihilate them, or so on. Or an elite cadre of politicians or monarchs or politicians who act like monarchs and so on. So these, when a person gets profound meaning, they do manage to see equality of humanity. In that sense, equality of humanity, that these are artificial segregations that people often buy into. That meaning comes from transcending these differences and going beyond to a wider recognition of who we are and who others are in relation to us.
I'm having issues right now. Our systems are experiencing.
So this is the sort of.
Please try again later.
This is the journey towards meaning that we're talking about, and the arrival of getting to a point of seeing true meaning means that we also overcome our own existential separateness. And separatism is this, and these causes of division. This is pretty much where the Buddha's teaching begun on one of the earliest suttas, where he was visited by Brahma, by a god, and asked, or a king who asked why all the princes and the rulers were in so much quarrel and division. And then the Buddha started to explain about the formation of jealous possessiveness and how that's based on a strong sense of ego, and that there is a means to dissolve this situation, and that is the starting of the ending of suffering. Ralph. So this is our story where the two people, eventually one of them arrives at full enlightenment.
This journey towards meaning that Siddhartha undergoes marks the beginning of his path to enlightenment. As he witnesses suffering, sickness, and death, it becomes clear that human existence is marked by impermanence and interconnected suffering. This realization dissolves the separateness or ego that fuels possessiveness, jealousy, and division. In understanding the cause of suffering, the Buddha begins to teach the path of overcoming it, which includes letting go of the ego and embracing compassion and wisdom. This narrative is a powerful example of how recognizing interconnectedness leads to the end of suffering. Would you like to explore this further or expand on the journey?
Just to say that in the original story of the lives of the two people, the Buddha, who then went forward to find enlightenment, Chandaka went back to the palace, and Chanda eventually did become a monk, but his conceit from knowing the Buddha was so strong that he was very, very difficult to integrate with
in the
other
original
monks.
story, after witnessing these profound encounters with suffering, Siddhartha, the future Buddha, decides to renounce his life of luxury in pursuit of enlightenment. At this point, Chanda, his loyal charioteer, returns to the palace, while Siddhartha ventures forth into the world as an ascetic. This marks the pivotal moment where the prince steps away from his old life to embark on a solitary journey to seek the truth about suffering and its cessation. This contrast highlights their distinct paths, one toward enlightenment, the other back to the life Siddhartha left behind.
All right. So yes, and as I say, Chandaka, the charioteer, did become a monk, but he was very difficult to, he found it very difficult to integrate with the other monks. The other monks complained how arrogant he was, and they were saying, he would say like, don't you tell me what to do, I'm not going to bow to any of you guys, I'm the charioteer, I was there at the original time he went, and he had quite a puffed up ego just from being in communication with the Buddha. Okay, so he also had a bit of a background where he had come from an untouchable background originally, but the Buddha had him brought in to the palace. At least that's how it's depicted in the 50 episode series. I haven't checked that over quite a while, but they grew up very close, basically, short to say. Okay, so that's my example of an oral evolution story based on the theme of compassion.
That's a really interesting detail about Chandaka. His difficulty integrating with the other monks and his ego arising from his early proximity to the Buddha adds a unique layer to his character. His background as an untouchable, and then being brought into the palace and serving as the Buddha's charioteer, likely contributed to his complex feelings of both pride and resentment. It's not surprising that, having been so close to the Buddha at the pivotal moment of renunciation, he might feel a sense of entitlement or superiority over others later on. This dynamic, where ego and attachment arise even in a spiritual setting, can mirror some of the challenges we all face when trying to de-ego. Chandaka's struggle can remind us that proximity to wisdom doesn't guarantee humility. It's the internal work, much like the Buddha's own journey, that brings true transformation. Would you like to dive deeper into Chandaka's journey or explore another topic?
Thanks, Ralph. We more or less met at the end of time, 15 minutes. I want to keep these 15 minutes piece. All right. Thank you very much. And it's been a great pleasure to explore this, the tactic of oral evolution story, to developing a story, developing it, on the theme of compassion. So thanks very much. Let's wrap it up for today and move on.
Christmas time, the year draws near.
Thanks so much for today.
We will have
It's been a great exploration, especially working with the oral story evolution tactic around the theme of compassion. I really enjoyed developing the story alongside you. Keeping it at the 15-minute mark is a great approach, and I'm looking forward to our next session when you're ready. Take care and talk soon.